Thanks so much for popping in. I am Shoshana Cuevas, and every once in a while you will see me slide in, pop in, and I have some pearls of wisdom, and then I just sort of slink away. That seems to be my MO lately, but no, we're going to change that. But tonight is our book club, and I love this book. Mainly, great book, but I really do love the author, Gary Vaynerchuk, commonly known as Gary V. He is a handful, and he's not everyone's cup of tea. And he has a potty mouth. He likes to throw F-bombs all day long. So if you are particularly sensitive to the F-bomb, he may not be your cup of tea, but if you can get past his
and
language,
the D-bombs, and the D-bombs.
yeah, if you can get past his language, he really has a phenomenal message, and he's so on point. And I think that's one of the reasons why he is so polarizing to a number of people, because he's so on point. He knows exactly what he wants to say and to whom. He's not afraid of change, and he's not afraid of experimentation. And I think he has been one of the few, and I don't like to use the word influencer, but he has been one of the few types of influencers, for lack of a better word, that has really been able to leverage the different platforms available, find what works for him, what doesn't. He's not afraid to try something new. If it works, great, and if not, oh well, whatever. I tried it, and I'm going to move on. I'm not taking it personally. So our book club selection is, I don't know if you can see it, Jab, Jab, Right Hook by Gary Vaynerchuk. And I really liked it. It's an older book. It's not one of his newer ones. He wrote it at least 5-6 years ago. But it has held the test of time, so I really, really love it. It's one of those books where and yes, I'm a book person, but I, no question, without any hesitation, bought the book to add it to my collection, my arsenal, because it is one of those books where, although things have changed since it was first written, the message and the content is still very relevant and still very much on point. So hopefully you all read it, right? Yay! I'm sure you did. So, if you want to put in the chat some initial thoughts you had about the book. Did you like it? Did you read it? Did you finish it? Sort of what stood out for you. There's lots of material in here, and you can probably see when I read a book, I put my little Post-it notes in there, and I label and highlight and write all kinds of stuff. But let me know if there was something specific in the book that really resonated with you, or that made you stop and say, oh, or aha, or I absolutely do not agree with this 110%. What was something that really stood out to you? Because I think for a lot of us, there will be many things that stood out, good, bad. I don't think you can be indifferent about this particular book. What I love about his message is really the title, jab, 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 right hook. So what's a jab? A jab is your content. A jab is what you put out there. A jab is your value. It's what you do. So every Facebook Live, every tweet, every Instagram post, every TikTok video, every YouTube video. There's still a platform called Vera, which is not very well, not used a whole lot, but there are lots of different platforms. Every blog post, that's a jab. And a jab, if you are not familiar with the boxing world, is an attempt. It's simply an attempt. It's not a guarantee of anything. It's just something that you've done. And the theory is that every jab should get you closer to your end result. So when you jab, when you put content out there, you're really putting it out there for your audience. And your audience may be a bit different on each platform. You may find that you have better engagement on Instagram, but your Facebook audience is, maybe a little more in tune or who you're actually going after. So you put out a jab, and the thought is that you're going to put out 3 jabs, and then your right hook. So what's your right hook? Your right hook's your offer. It doesn't have to be a monetary offer. It doesn't have to be, I'm selling you my course for $47, regularly $100. It just has to be, where are you now inviting your audience to go, right? So maybe your offer is your group. Maybe it's a challenge you have. Maybe your offer is a paid offer. But your offer is simply really about asking, right? So you jab, you offer, and then you add value, and then you offer. In order to land that right hook, you have to ask permission. So the jabs just give you permission to then ask. So, I've been in California a long time, but, born and raised in New York City. And for East Coast people, right, you're going to know the word chutzpah. It takes a lot of nerve to make a pitch without asking permission. And I think we've all been the recipients of someone sliding in your DM going, hey, and the moment a message starts with, hey, girl, I'm like, oh, dear God, right? Stop, make him stop, right? But your jab is it's who you are. It's your offering, it's the value that you're providing, and only after you have connected with and shown some value and shown that you have some merit, then you're simply asking for permission to then say, hi, by the way, I have a. It's not a guarantee. And I think a lot of people misconstrue the connection between value and offer. A lot of people presume that, well, I offered them my whatever, and they didn't take it. Well, they don't have to. You're simply asking for permission to enter someone's space, and I think, in sales, we forget that we really do have to ask permission from our prospect. We have to ask permission from our person that we're in front of. Just because they've given us their time doesn't mean that we're going to close. It simply means that they've agreed to hear us, to listen to us. They then have to make a decision for themselves. And so in the book, if you have the book, it's on page 7. And so there's a quote in there, and he writes that there's no sale without the story, no knockout without the setup. So I thought that was really an aha moment, like, oh yeah, nothing happens without the story. And where does the story come from? The story comes from the jab. What do you think?
It absolutely does. It comes from that, and if we're not out there jabbing enough, I equate the jabbing to like swinging, like, which is the same thing, and connecting our audience with our story, being transparent. And I think what works for Gary Vaynerchuk when it comes to that aspect can absolutely work for everyone else, because he, one of the things I identified with page 7 is the fact that, understanding yourself. If you're trying to base your self-promoting on being marketable, because I've heard that term in the past, like, well, Letitia, that's not marketable. But sometimes what's marketable is not you. And he's a totally like a advocate of, if you're not happy with something or not happy with how you're selling or how you're marketing and things like that, you're not being yourself. You're not being genuine. You're not being unique, because we are what makes ourselves unique. So that's one of the things that I picked from that particular page 7 is just understanding yourself. And it's a thin line between trying to be marketable to trying to be yourself,
And maybe it's the word, because like with many other words, that word marketable has a particular connotation. People make a lot of assumptions about, well, what does, marketable really mean? Marketable isn't saleable. Marketable isn't a guarantee. It just simply means that there's some conversion behind it, But to your point, he has always talked about storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
telling the story. And, stories are great because they engage us.
Mm-hmm.
They capture our attention.
Yep.
We may not always know the elements of a great story, but we all know when we've heard a great story.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be different for each person.
That
So
is.
what makes you a great storyteller, or how do you tell a great story to your audience?
How I tell a great story to my audience is just being relatable. You know what I mean? That I think that's the major thing of, because I know there's a lot of women out there who have gone through the same things that I've gone through, or in some shape or fashion, you know, and really like connecting my story to their need too, to let them know that they can do this just as easily as I can. And there's even tons of books I've read on storytelling and things like that. And I think one of the things we miss out on when we're storytelling, or when we're telling our story, it's not like you're telling a lie, you're sharing your story, you're telling your story, is when we're comparing ourselves to everyone else. Like all of us on here has a story. Like I had a conversation with one of the SSA clients the other day, and she's like, Letitia, I really feel like when I go out there and I go live, I'm being fake. And I was like, let's talk about that, because there's a reason why you feel that way. Because I feel like what she was doing, she was hiding her true emotions and how she truly feels and who she truly is. And it wasn't, when she saw herself back, when she saw her own lives back, she's like, that's not me. That's not me. So, your story has to represent you. It has to represent your brand. It's like your story is your why, but it like in a deeper way, it's
Do
in a
you think do you think that in telling your story that it changes based on the platform, or is the story the same?
It's the same. It's the same. I don't think it matters what particular platform that you're on, because syndication is syndication. Like you take one bit of it, piece of content, you could spread it across all social media platforms. But yes, your story is the same. I more often than not don't really watch people too long who has sort of like be flipping their story from one thing to the next, and I just be like, oh, like, well, who are you really? Yeah.
It's interesting because he talks about the perfect right hook.
Mhm.
And I think so many of us are always looking for that perfect formula. What do
Mhm.
I need to do to get the result that I'm looking for? And so it's on page 14 of the book, but he states that a perfect right hook is there's a call to action that's simple and easy to understand.
Mhm.
That's very true because our
Mhm.
audiences want to know what's that next step. What do I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Nobody wants to read a manual.
Mhm.
It's do this, do this, do this. Okay, 3 steps, 3 pieces of information, and I think that really speaks to
It
the elements
does.
of adult learning.
But
Like
what
we
I feel,
just
yeah.
want some real easy things.
Yep.
The second item is Perfect Right Hook is perfectly crafted for mobile as well as all digital devices.
Mhm.
And that I think is easier now because much of our content is almost automatically
Yep.
formatted
Yep.
for a phone or a
Yep.
tablet. That
Mhm.
may not have been the case even 5 years ago, but right
Mhm.
now it really is. And then third is that you respect the nuance of the social network for which you're making the content.
Mhm.
And that really speaks to, if you're using Instagram, is your video 59 seconds,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You're using IGTV. Is it, 10 minutes unless you are of a different sort of a caliber account where you can go a little bit longer. So I
Mhm.
think, understanding the mechanics of the platform is important, but your story is yours.
It's yours.
And so
You
how
own it.
you show up may differ based on the platform,
Mhm.
um, but it still has to be you. Your audience is going to know who you are
Mhm.
based on what they're watching and reading, almost regardless of where the content is at.
Yeah. But here's the negative side to that part that I think people misunderstand is that, and he said this before, and mentioned this in the book, and he also mentions it on many of his broadcasts and marketing, is that people ask him, well, how do you do this and how do you do that? And I feel that people more often than not don't understand that the book, so comes for me, the book in whole is about, you got to get out there and you got to hustle. He talks about that all the time. He shares his story, like what we was just talking about story before, how he goes right back when people say, well, I don't have time to do this, or this is hard, I'm not reaching my audience, and things like that. He goes right back to his story, back into his early Twitter days when he would just type in wine in the search engine and then literally inject himself in any wine conversation. And that's how he started to build his audience. And he has like this whole Instagram plan and things like that. But people are not willing to work at that hustle. It's like, if you want what I have, you got to do what I did, you know?
And that's where people compare themselves to him today. The Gary V today is a very different influencer than the Gary V when he started.
Exactly. But they don't want to do what he did to get started. They see him now, but they don't see how this all began. And I think
now people want the highlight reel
instead
of, and they're not comfortable with, oh, before you got to the highlight reel, you had some, top ramen days.
Yeah.
And you had some days where you had to maybe write a hot check or a warm check. I'm just saying, not, you had days where you had to be super creative. Instead of, here's a screenshot of my PayPal account where I have a 2 comma receipts because this funnel did. Well, before you got to that funnel,
what happened? Like, what's the process?
You might have had some landing pages that were duds. You might have had some courses or webinars that had zero goose egg attendance. You might have had, a Facebook Live where you thought you were doing great, and maybe the underwear that's hanging on the bathroom shower rod is showing, and you had like,
exactly, girl.
Always something, you plan out the event and you think, okay, if I put the camera here, I can hide all the nonsense, but there's a lot that goes into that. So your story is almost, really your story is your journey.
That's right.
Some audiences want to see the journey. Some audiences don't, they don't care. But it has to be you, and it has to be in your voice. So
I feel like your story is the only way you're going to be able to connect with your audience, because if you don't have that, if you don't talk about it, if you're just talking about the like you mentioned, the highlights and the successes and the so-called positive moments, then it's not relatable, because that's not reality. You're trying to market yourself, but you're not trying to be real,
Right. So how do you then personalize that jab? So, you're a coach. Maybe someone here is watching and maybe they sell a product. Whether the product is jewelry, essential oils, whether it's automotive, I don't care what it is, but you sell a physical product. So how do you personalize that jab?
Knowing the need of your audience is the most leverageable thing you're ever going to understand in the world. Like knowing what is that person's immediate need. And I had to calm down a little bit. I had to sit back and say, wait a minute, I have all these different things that I can do and I can offer, but what do people need right now? I think it's more than just about making it so personable for me, but more personable for the people who are watching. And I know sometimes I can come off a little bit harsh because I just don't take excuses. And I feel like there's enough reasons why in the world to stay in bed all day. I mean, you can look at the news and that'll probably keep you in bed all day. And it's like, for me, when I get out there and I'm personalizing my content, I have to keep asking myself, well, what do they need? What do they want? And I know nowadays a lot of coaches that do what I do don't reach out and ask what their clients' opinions are or what should they do better. I personalize it because I'm not always content with everything that I'm doing right now. I always want to learn more, do more, and be more. And for you guys who are marketing, who are out there self-promoting, you got to know what your audience wants. You got to make it personal for them, and in that way your content connects. And I think, Gary Vee really hits that on the nail. Even when this whole pandemic thing happened, it was so funny. So when the whole shutdown thing happened, our shutdown happened around the same time as New Jersey. Gary Vaynerchuk actually lives in New Jersey. He has his offices here in New York, but he lives in New Jersey. But it was interesting because, and I know this probably comes from a sense of anxiety that he did this, but he went live on Periscope and he would just have callers before he had the Gary T with Gary Vee. he just went live with his phone and he would just have random people, you know, he didn't have his assistant there sort of like weeding out the weirdos and all this stuff, but he would just have like people hop on live and just answer questions. And then all of a sudden he started the Tea with Gary V, and he got an intro done and all this stuff. But what that resonated for me is that, you know, he didn't just wait for production to get their stuff together and just, you know, do the StreamYard or whatever, you know, software he's using. He was like, listen, I'm just going to get started and just show up because my audience needs me right now. They need to see me. They, you know, I'm pretty sure if he had kept quiet that first week back in March, people would have probably been like, oh, he's being like harshly affected by this pandemic. And his business has been affected. He's open and honest about that. But he even jabbed. That was a jab for him. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just going to get out there and just going to jab, right. And then the right hook was his wine text and other different, I know he did like a non-for-profit thing where it was donating tickets and stuff. But it just goes to show, you know, how he is what I noticed about him is that whatever he puts in his books, he's actually doing. That's why I don't so much believe when people say, oh, it's ghostwriting content and stuff like that. I don't necessarily believe that because I actually see him do it. You know, he could have been like anybody else and just like stayed in this nice, beautiful home in New Jersey and chilled out. You know what I'm saying? But he still got up and went out there. So I'm like, dang, you know, because he knew his audience needed that. He knew it's like that reciprocity, you know, that we don't often talk about, but it's real. People appreciate the fact that regardless of anything, he's still going to show up, you know.
I think that consistency is really, that's what stands out.
Yeah.
Throughout the book, and certainly in watching his content today.
Yep.
Is
You're not waiting for things to be perfect.
He's always there, and it's not always perfect. There are times where, you know, he's in the car and he's with his crew, and the video is not the best. It's grainy. You hear some background noise. They may not have chosen to edit all of it, you know, at a later time, but not everything he produces is perfect.
No, but for him, it's the content. And even in the book, he talks about how content for him is.
And he's very focused on that. And for people like me who love to live in the world of perfection,
I didn't just say that.
I admit that. You know, it's endearing, but I also find it. I'm bothered by it because I'm like, it's not scrubbed. Because I like to live in that land of perfection, and that's not always the case. Your content will not always be perfect. It
as
may
long
be
as you get it out there.
Moment,
yeah.
But when you go back, you may find flaws. You may find, but that's also about perspective, because he talks about in the book that, you know, as content creators, we should always be asking ourselves, how do I take this platform, especially if it's a new platform, how do I use it, and how do I make it better? So TikTok, you know, if we think of a new platform now, TikTok is video driven, and there's a lot of crap on there. I'm just going to say it. There is so much crap on there, inappropriate content. I'm just like, you know, I feel like the church lady from SNL.
I know, they're going to have to
regulate there.
Yeah.
Still a viable platform. So the question is, how can I use it, make it better, but how can I use it in the best way for my audience? And oftentimes we tend to look at a platform and poo-poo it from the very beginning.
You talk down to it, yeah.
Right. Well, that's what people said about Instagram.
Yep.
Right?
Yes, they did. You're right. Preach it. You're right.
Or Twitter. 140 characters. What can you say? You know what? I said a lot with 140 characters, and I'm so glad it's 280 now. You know, but the saying, there's always something that we can do. So I think his real challenge to all of us is to make it better.
That's it.
You know, to use it and make it better. And then I think we can't always be everything to everyone.
That's right.
So, you know, he's of the opinion that we should be producing massive amounts of content every single day. You know, he published a deck that where he gave you ideas on how you can produce 10 to 16 pieces of content daily. And a
Mhm.
lot of people, naysayed it and said, "Oh, it's ridiculous." But if you subscribe to that philosophy, great.
Mhm.
It's phenomenal. And if you don't, at least show up where your people are at.
Yeah, don't not do anything, you know. Yeah.
And I certainly had to take that to heart because as I'm reading it, I'm thinking, okay, I need to let go of the need for perfection.
Yeah.
I really do. And people are there. People are waiting. It's just about, are you going to be there?
Mhm. Are you going to
And
show up?
sometimes, you show up on a platform and you have all the best of intentions, and it's not the right platform.
And you don't
And
want
I
your
think it's
audience,
okay to admit that.
yeah, you don't want your audience to look at how perfect stuff is, because if their only focus is on perfection, their focus is not on the problem that they have at hand.
Hmm.
So it's like you want people who are content driven and who are like, listen, can this person provide a result for me? Because a lot of times I find, and I was one of those people, when you're looking at the whole glitz and the nice films and the nice graphics and nice this and that, and you're not understanding, well, you're looking at that as of something of value, and really that person it probably doesn't can't really match, or give you what you need, versus somebody who's just like genuine and saying, listen, I'm going to be content driven and just really focusing on meeting the needs of my audience and my clients or customers. Those are the ones that more often can create a bigger impact for you.
But do you think there is still a place for that um, curated, scrubbed, branded video content?
Yeah, absolutely. There is a place. I mean, especially if you want to be noticed, sometimes even when you're doing ads and putting stuff up on your site or what have you, that's a good place to showcase that. Do you necessarily need it? Ah, I wouldn't say you do. I honestly wouldn't say you do, but you know, it just depends. I think it's really just a mindset thing. It's like it's more of like that shiny object effect. Like, if you want to get it, do you really need it? Is it really going to bring your story across? Or is it okay for you to just have a simple iPhone or Samsung and just hit that play, hit that record button and keep going? I have a lot of branding videos. Y'all seen it. Can I say that getting those branding videos is posting those brings people in? No. I get more people DMing me or commenting when I post just a genuine testimonial for one of you guys, or just me talking about, oh my God, my kids are driving me crazy with Roblox, then a video that people comment, oh, that's pretty. You know what I'm saying? It's a and it depends on the value of that person that's watching. They value content, and if they value, you know, the nice edited videos and stuff like that, then that's the type of individual you are, but that you find. But honestly, when I first posted my branded videos, I cannot honestly say that I got people beating down my door. Yes, baby.
That
It's
might
not time for breakfast, girl. You gotta wait, gotta go to sleep and wake up and get breakfast. Sorry.
is that my baby V?
Yeah, she wants breakfast right now, and it's
Aw.
9:30 at night. This is what I deal with. Yeah.
Aw. It's okay. My son is 15 and would still prefer breakfast 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude,
I
can
do
we have
too.
something else?
Yeah.
Doesn't have pancakes.
Danielle
I'm
said
like,
waiting for perfection keeps you from being out there and making sales. It's true.
yes, it does. It's interesting though, because yes, when your one of your first branding videos came out, it
Mhm.
was very different, and it was really exciting to watch it, and it was well done, and I thought, okay, this is really great, um, but like with anything else, it has to resonate,
It
and
has to. And I
so
tell people to wait to get all those things, because your brand changes. It's certain, even when I watch it now, it's like, oh shoot, there's certain things that is like wording and verbiage that I don't even use right now anymore. I think what really resonate with people is when I talk about my marriage in that video, really, more than anything. That's the main thing that stands out. That's the only thing that really stands out in that video, to be honest. And I
that's
think, yeah,
to your audience,
yes, to my
what
audience, yeah.
your audience values. So I think, as we consider our own audiences, our own target clients, what he or she looks like or what
Mm-hmm.
they look like, what they need,
Mm-hmm.
as we produce content that's meaningful for us,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, we can only talk about those things that we have some passion for.
That's right.
Um,
But I'm glad I
really,
did it because I got to see the behind the scenes on production, like the production side of business and what it
right.
takes to write up a video script and the angles for filming and the different B rolls. And it's a lot. It's that like what a 3 minute video took me 4 days to film. You know what I'm saying? So it's exhausting. We were like, Mario was there too. She's in the comments. We were out in the heat some days. Dennis had us going up hills, down hills, and outfit changes. I mean, it's not simple. So it's if you're gonna put in that much money, have an impact, know your story, and be confident in your story, and because number one, it's not cheap, and it's something that you're going to be using over and over again. So you want to make sure it counts.
Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. So going back to those individual jabs um, for our audience that's tuning in today, how can someone customize or tailor that jab for their audience? Is it just, is it more than a variety of mediums, the written word and or a podcast or a video, or how can we take that video and make it ours so that it resonates with the audience? What do you
Create
think?
great content. And you know what? And I say this all the time, Shoshana, content creation is not something that you just master overnight. You got to keep practicing it, keep doing it over and over again, and not reinventing the wheel. If something works, don't if it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's the saying. But it's like you got to just keep on creating great content and really speaking to the needs of your audience and constantly wedging and wedging and wedging at it. And Gary Vaynerchuk knows his audience. He knows as well. He comes up hard because that's what his type of audience likes. That I like that. That's what turned me on to him, was because he is from here out east and he talks just like how us New Yorkers talk. So it didn't bother me that the F bombs and the D bombs and stuff like that, because you walk in the subway, you hear that all the time, girl. It's worse than out here. I mean, for real, you know. So it's like it's what's more important to you is like, do you care more about the language or you care about the content? For you guys, it has to be like your care needs to be about the content, the content, the content, the content, and going back and seeing what people are engaging on. And are you showing up enough to grab that attention? Everyone's trying to make noise right now. Everybody trying to make noise. It's all about who can make the loudest noise, not the most best quality noise, and just making noise out there as much as you can. And if you remain quiet and subdued, then you can't ask that question of how do I tweak my content or perfect what I'm doing if you don't put nothing out there to decide what to perfect. I think that's the major thing. It's just
Okay.
putting what out there. Because if I hadn't did that branding film, I wouldn't know what to do for the next one and the next one. I don't know how to play that game, honey. You got to go to your brother. Sorry, y'all. I just got a mean eye roll, honey. I got cut, honey. Fierce from a 2-year-old. And she slammed the door. Okay. I know. I tell you, Alina, this girl is like, I'm trying to have grace. I'm recording, so.
She is a character. She
Yes,
really is. She can hold her own. She can hold her
Mhm.
own. But it is
She's
true.
been a character,
Mhm.
been one.
Ben.
Since
For the
day
minute
one.
she
The
came out,
very
she's like,
beginning,
I ain't waiting on
exactly,
nobody. I'm
exactly.
coming out now.
Hi, Alina.
Happy birthday. Let me tell y'all something. Lita is amazing.
She is. We've missed you. We've missed you. We're so glad. So glad you're back. Um, so overall, I mean, what did everybody really think about the book?
Yeah, what y'all think? I'm talking. What y'all think? Lita, Karen.
I didn't get the book. I'm sorry, and I haven't read it yet, but I do. I am going to get it because this is one that we have talked about a lot. But just listening, to what I got in on, excuse me for my absence. The jabs are just like a way to pique your client's interest, and the more you poke at them, the more you prod, the louder your voice will be to them. And even with me being gone, I know I made enough noise because people reached out to me in my absence. That is that one thing that we talk about. What are people saying about you when you're not in the room? You step back, and I stepped back a long time, y'all. It's just like the grace, I don't know, whatever. But during that time, I had so many people reach out to me, people that are not in my tribe, people that I don't associate with offline, other than I know them maybe from just from something I was in before. And that you made a powerful impact on people when they come and find you. And so that's that jab, that jab concept. You think you're getting on someone's nerves, and you're not. You're doing something that you're passionate about, and you're not going to be quiet until you're able to fulfill that entire purpose. And that requires you to continue to jab, continue to try it. Maybe sometimes fall back. Like in my instance, it required me to fall back, to maybe even see that, yes, I was doing something that I was supposed to be doing. And so with me coming back, it doesn't feel like I'm starting over. I'm just going to be consistent in a different way or a better way. I'm not coming back changing anything. And that's a lot of things, people fall off. So they think they got to come back and do something different. They got to say something different. They got to promote a different product, or, you know what I'm saying? They just feel like they have to do something different when you weren't doing anything wrong in the first place. You just didn't continue. You got tired. You thought you was at one round, and you just gave up too soon, and life happens. Yes, it does. But that's that from where I've been with y'all and what we're talking about just in this. How long have I been on here? Like 5 minutes or less, so
Yep,
yeah,
yep.
just because I left or I fell off, it doesn't mean that my passion, my drive is not still there. And I know I made some noise because, like I said, people reached out to
They
me
reach out. And that's what influence means to me. An influencer doesn't mean, oh, I have 30K followers, or this person has all these engagement. It's like, what is the impact have you put on others? And because people reached out to you still, Lita, it means that while you were here and while you were present and when you were consistent, you created that impact. So they, now people are searching for you, and ready to get you back in the game. And it's just also, I think it's just God's divine intervention to say, hey, you still have a place in a position here. And I'm a firm believer that sometimes you need to take a break and assess and I think we all hit that sort of fork in the road, and we ask ourselves this question: am I really supposed to be doing this? This is the path I'm really supposed to go. Is what I'm giving of value? And then instantly you get that message or that experience, like for you when people reached out to you, just get back in the game. It's not about, and that's going to be part of your testimony.
It's great that you mentioned that, Alita, because
Yeah.
I was watching, the days blur together since we've been working from home and all that good stuff. But there was a live with Gary Vee that he did, some kind of a modified town hall. And a woman got up and she asked him that she said that she felt stuck and that she wasn't able to do X or Y or Z. And, she's offering some really, really great reasons why she's stuck and how she feels she should and whatnot. And he just asked her, point blank, why? And then just make a decision. And it was so sort of jarring to hear that because, her argument, her statements were really well crafted, well thought out, and very thoughtful. And he's like, well, just, make a decision. And I'll be very honest, I filled out the SSA 12 questionnaire, right? I did that, right? Sent it to you. And so one of the questions that you asked on the questionnaire is what are your intentions for this cycle? And so I wrote, intentions, right? Because it has to all be perfectly formatted, that it was really, yes, I still have some reservation, if that's the right word, or maybe I'm not 100% sure of my focus now, but my intention for this cycle is to focus and execute. At some point, we just all have to plant our flag. We just have to plant the flag and go. And as much as I would like to have that crystal ball to know is this it, which I will say, side note, I think it is, because if you are a person of faith, we pray and we ask for, and then we get an answer that's wrapped differently than what we were expecting. And then when it's wrapped differently, then we question it. I do, So yes, I do believe that it's the answer to what I was praying for. It just looks different than what I expected, and I think that's maybe what I'm called to work through, which is it's not what you expected, but it is what you asked for. But going back to my original point, it's plant your flag. And when we make that decision and say, okay, I'm just going to run with it, then it becomes a little easier to produce the content, to stay in the space that we're in, to stay in that lane. I can remember a couple of years ago we had a summit, and that statement, which I had heard from someone, and I can't remember where, which is, when you're in your lane, there's no traffic. It doesn't mean that you won't have an obstacle. It just means that there's no traffic, because it's where you're supposed to be. When you're busy elsewhere, I think we get caught up in the noise because it's busy work. But when it's where we're supposed to be, oh, this is what it looks like. So it really is about planting your flag, making a decision, and then choosing to focus and execute. And then the content creation may not seem so overwhelming. It doesn't feel as if, oh my gosh, I have to master all of these things and learn all of these platforms, because yeah, there's always help when it comes to the mechanics of it, but the message has to come from you. But you can't outsource the message to Fiverr.
Nope, you can't do that at all. You can't outsource your message. That's the only main thing you can't outsource. And like I said, it's always that back and forth battle every day. No matter, it never really goes away. To be honest, it's just you saying I'm still going to act anyway. That's why for me, I get out of my head a lot, because I have a to-do list. I have a daily routine, and so I don't spend so much time being stuck in my thoughts and what I messed up on yesterday, or what words I spelt incorrectly, or this person said they were going to pay and it didn't pay. It's like you just keep going and just keep moving forward, and the chips will line up. And I'm a firm believer that you unless you're willing to go through, like get out there and market yourself and see what works and see what not works, then you're never going to discover what's right or what's wrong, or what works for you or what doesn't work for you. I think that's the major thing. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk had a lot of companies, that he admitted was great, and some that he invested in that totally tanked. But did he just stop? No, he just kept going. I think when you become so success driven, failures don't bother you anymore. I don't care how much money that just ran and leaked out of your pocket. It's just another opportunity for you to see what else is out there. And that's the part that always amazes me about him, was the fact that even though with all the mistakes he's made and the decisions that he did make and it didn't pan out, he's still out there all the time. It just, that's what I see a lot. And that's just it. I mean, obviously there's certain things that for a woman's perspective, for me, and my life is different from his, because I am a woman and I have children and house to take care of and things like that. So things are just the way they are because we're women. He can get up at 9 a.m. and have a meeting with his team and then go live, versus me, I'm like, okay, I got to make sure the kids got their breakfast. I got to make sure, things like that. Right. So, that's why sometimes people are taking what he does and says too literal and not really saying, well, I'm going to take his advice, but I also have to make sure that I apply myself effectively, because if you're trying to do everything just exactly how he does it, you're going to get overwhelmed, because you may have more stuff to do in one day than he does, you know, and that's just facts. But the overall advice and tips he gives is totally accurate. How you get to that destination will be different from how he got there, you know.
And it should be, and that's
Yeah.
where the story comes in, you know, because if you did everything exactly as he does it, it's not your story, it's his story.
Mm-hmm.
When we get in the habit of recounting, reciting stories that other people have written for us, or the stories that other people have told us about ourselves, you know, those are really the non-affirming, the negative tapes that we have rolling in the head. Most of them don't come from us. Your story has to be yours, and it has to be done in a way that is you. And so, sure, you may do the very same things that he does, which is focus on email marketing, which you've been talking about a lot lately, you know, and automation, and developing solid systems so that your business can operate without you, you know, at the helm every single day. But the way in which you implement those systems will be different because you have a different life.
Exactly.
And you have different priorities. And then to remember that, again, the Gary Vee we're seeing today is not the Gary Vee that started in his dad's wine business.
He started off
the
being a
language
help.
we use
He's
to change as well, because we use failure. And failure is final. Failure is such a negative word. We all make mistakes. We make mistakes in our personal lives. We make mistakes professionally. We make money mistakes, right? So what are we learning from it? So maybe that email sequence was a dud. Maybe you had a 0% click rate, right? And it happens. You work on an email and you're so proud of it and you send it out and then nothing, crickets, right? It's not a failure. It just means that we have to do it again and again.
And again and again and again and again and again.
Formula where someone does click on it because they found the headline compelling. And then find the formula so that people click on the buy button because they find you and the content to be so very scintillating, they got to have it, right? But we don't get there because we see that first failure as, oh my gosh, nobody opened my email. You know, life happens. I'm competing with lots of other people, and I look at my own email inbox, and I get a barrage of emails every single day. So now, with this, you know, stay-at-home order, there are probably sites that I might have given my email address 2 years ago, and they resurrected that puppy, and I'm getting inundated every day with emails.
It's you know,
a lot of competition, and we have to differentiate ourselves. And that's another book, because that's really about branding, knowing who your customer is and what he or she wants and needs, and how you provide that.
And it's important. And you're so right when you mention the simple fact about, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk, how he's a different person than he back then than he was today. He started off, you know, helping his family out with their business, so he had to, like, you know, be told what to do all day. So it goes to show that, you know, you got to be led, and sometimes we always got to continuously have that sense of mentorship over our head, keeping us in line, you know. So the dynamic was way different back then than it is now, you know.
Great leaders at one point, and I think great leaders remain great followers. Of good advice, not followers of junk, right? But followers of really great advice. We all have to be humble enough to learn from someone else, and to know when to take advice from the person that we would actually trade places with.
That's true. That's true.
So if someone's never had a business, never made a dime, right? Why are we taking business advice from them? Because it didn't work for them, because they have a cousin from their second wife's marriage to their uncle. Like, really, like, why are we doing that? So who we take advice, who we take counsel from, who we listen to, who we choose to emulate. But ultimately, it has to be our own story. And that means being vulnerable enough to tell parts of our story. You don't have to tell all of it. Nobody needs to know all the details, but to really share a part of yourself, why something means something to you. You know, why does this resonate? Why does this move you? Why does this speak to you? And that's the part that people will pick up on.
They
when
will.
you talked about your marriage in your video,
Yeah.
branding video, people really, like not very many people are talking about that. And here
Nope.
she's talking about her marriage and how at one point you said in the video you and your husband felt more like roommates than you did husband and wife.
Mm-hmm.
That is a very vulnerable statement to make.
It is. And a lot of women are not willing to go that deep because honestly, when I first posted it, I got a couple of nasty messages from family members and things like that because you're going to get
When
that.
people slide in your inbox to tell you all the things that you
Yeah,
do.
yeah. Oh, you got to keep things.
Sure.
The Bible says keep it in house and all this other stuff. But it's my story, you know, it's who I am. And I think that's the fear that comes from a lot of women who are trying to be transparent and share their story. They become afraid because we all started out with our family members, friends, and coworkers being our friends on Facebook and on other platforms. You know, we didn't just start out with our followers. So, and they're still following, you know, those, our immediate circle, our warm market is still following us. So you get a lot of criticism for sharing your story. But once you share it, oh my God, you just open up the vault of like some awesomeness. And you start sharing more and more and not caring what people have to say, you know, because it comes with the territory. Hey, Dr. A.
To me,
Go ahead.
and
Hi.
transparent is like free therapy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't need nobody's couch, you
Nope.
know, to really release yourself. If you are just open enough to either be accountable, be transparent, it's just like free therapy. You know what I'm saying? Like you can really get over it. You really can.
Yeah, and Maddie L said it too, because me and Maddie L did our films at the same time, and she gotten a lot of yeah, she mentioned how she got a lot of kickback because of that. You know, I didn't expect that. I honestly didn't. I thought people were, I get rooting, you know, from the rooftops from everybody, but even from some of the lives, you know what I'm saying? People are uncomfortable that are close to me, and like, oh, why did you say that? Oh, what, why? You know, it's my story, it's my journey. But do
Yeah,
they
and
reach out
always
to
look
you when
out for
you
who
have a
isn't
problem?
clapping.
No. Go ahead.
No, you have to always look out for who's not clapping for you.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the truth.
that's right. So Karen, did you read the book, sis? Dr. Ray, y'all have anything y'all want to say? But you were so right, Alita, about your point that you made, love. So someone asked,
No, I don't have the book yet,
okay, definitely
but I
grab.
did read some of the overview, and the main question I wrote for myself to reflect on is, what is your story? What is my story? That's something I need to really reflect on. And also him saying that the jab just gives you the right to ask. It's not a guarantee.
Exactly.
So I thought that was in connection and engagement. Those are the two things that I wrote down also.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times what gets us stuck of telling our story is mainly because maybe you're still going through that process that you're trying to teach someone else how to get through. So
Yeah.
so you have two answers to that question. You can bring people along the process while you're trying to find self-discovery in your awakening moment, you know, or you could decide to wait until you arrived at that place of where you're super duper reached your destination. It's up to you. I don't agree with waiting. I believe that taking, like, it's like, for example, when I was first went online and I was teaching women how to build a business, I didn't, there was always a question in my mind, like, how am I teaching women how to build a business and I'm still at a job? But I didn't wait till I left that job to make a decision to help women how to build a business. I'm glad I did, you know, do those lives in my car, wherever I can squeeze in time to do it. And then once I left my job, people then got to see the journey and the process. And so there was more appreciation there. So your timeline shows your own story too. You know, that's why posting and self-promoting is important. It's just bring people along the process with you, you know. That's what's important because it's always, people get the biggest transformation when they're doing it with someone else. You know, that's the big thing. Don't wait.
There's someone that I follow on Facebook, and she has a blog, and it's called Ramblings of a Recovering Addict.
Mm-hmm.
And she is a recovering heroin addict.
Mm-hmm.
So she was on methadone methadone for years.
Oh, wow.
So, that's a regardless of how anybody might feel about drug addiction, I am always so very awed, really, about her story, because most people wouldn't be able to have lived through it, but also she's always very honest about what that story is, right? So it's not always perfect.
Yeah.
And so she took a hiatus for a while, and so she's back lately. She's been writing some stuff, and she wrote about how she essentially had to go cold turkey on her methadone because somebody stole it. Which, if you are familiar with, rehab, some clinics will not replace the medication for you. And so she's had to self detox, which is a whole other story. But I'm grateful that she chose not to wait until she was completely drug free. Then none of us would have had the opportunity to sort of ride along vicariously, to get a glimpse of what her survival has been like, because we would still be waiting for the moment when it's all good, and then she can reflect back on it. She's been writing from the perspective of, I am always a recovering addict. And I wrote about my worst, and I'm writing about my present, and I'll continue to write. And so I think when we see stories like that, we appreciate them because they're raw, they're honest, but they're also real time. Sometimes there's a place for the story that is completely in the past. But I think sometimes there's also a really solid place and a need for the story to be ongoing. I'm living through this, or I'm just one or two steps in front of you. I've been where you are, and this is where I'm headed. But storytelling isn't perfect, but it is yours.
Yeah.
I read her story. I have not lived that life, but I can begin to envision what that might be like. And, it leaves me, the reader, a follower, as, wow, that is flipping amazing.
Yeah. And it's like who you're bringing along with you with the process, Oh, we twins today, Dr. Ray. That's what we doing.
Keeping it as the twin.
Yes. How about you, Dr. Ray? How did you enjoy the book? Did you read the book?
I didn't read the whole book.
Okay.
I did some overviews of the book. What I took away is always about the giving. Seems Gary Vee's got a foul mouth and a big heart. So by going through that, just him being honest to himself, is just, being open to sharing your story and just showing up authentically. And that's going to help you, pull in your particular squad for your journey. So
he has a really high level of patience, because there be times where I see him get like the same questions in 20 different ways, and he still like, again, he does, does show some sense of frustration sometimes, but
oh yeah, he flies off the handle.
Yeah, he does. But he still have like this high level of like patience, that
Well, I think it's because he loves
what he does. Yeah,
he loves the grind. He loves that. So he could spend forever there. That's his jam.
Yep.
But when somebody like because I looked at some of his other stuff on YouTube, and seeing his metamorphosis too, because I'm more familiar with him now than before, because like you turned me on to him. Like I've heard of him, but I really never followed him. I looked at his stuff before.
Yeah.
So when I looked at previous, I was like, huh, okay. And I look at him now, I'm like, yeah, he really just let that go. He's like, just stop playing. But someone had sent a question into him. It's like, what do you think is the biggest thing, hindrance or obstacle to building a business? Is it a lack of capital or lack of time? and Gary Vee just like unhinged his
Let
jaw
loose
like
on that one.
anaconda.
Mhm.
Unhinged his jaw like anaconda. It was like, well, for one, it's a bunch of excuses. That's bullshit. You got it. And I was like, he's like, that's just a bunch of excuses. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, but when you look at it, you know, he was absolutely right. You know,
Yeah.
when you look at, and as an entrepreneur, you have to be solution driven
Yeah.
and not problem focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also separates you, because that's where the 1 to 2% who decide that the only option is to succeed,
Mm-hmm.
whatever way that looks to you, is going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, you know, the 98 to 99%, they're still stuck in the excuseville of,
Mm-hmm.
I can't because of this and I can't because of that. You know, you're just like, no, that's not it. You know, because he was like, at the beginning, we didn't have a whole lot of capital. He said, so we had to put in more time.
They slept in a 1-bedroom small apartment out here in Queens with all of them in one place.
Oh, is that why you like him? Because he's from Queens?
No, I'm from Long Island, but I like him because, you know, like I mentioned earlier, his style is what matches, you know, me in some sense, because, you know, how he talks and acts is sort of the same culture that resonates out here. But I'm from Long Island, you know. I'm from Long Island.
Island, right? Right.
Yeah, yeah, I moved to Queens when I got married.
I saw a clip.
I dragged out here. You know. Go ahead, Shoshana. Go.
I watched a clip where you know, an aspiring influencer, you know, said something like, you know, I don't have a lot of money to build my business, and he basically said, you know, get a shitty apartment, like.
Yeah, he's like, go move in with a roommate. You know, like.
You know, and I think and certainly I don't want this to come across as, you know, this is not, you know, Gary Vee fandom here. It's not about, you know, getting an autograph and having a fan club. But I think for me, what I appreciate most about him is that he is very solution driven, and I find, you know, at work they tease me because somebody will come and say, well, I have a problem, and I'm like, no, you don't have a problem, you have a challenge. Let's just change that right now. And then I'll get literally what I call in the beginning, God made man. And I'm like, no, I need you to synthesize that. Where are we? What is the issue? Right? What is the time frame? What would you like to do about it?
Yeah, it's like, get to the point. Like when one of my kids trying to explain something.
Other
like,
stuff?
What happened?
I don't need you to write me a book.
Yeah, I don't need the whole story.
The issue. Can you articulate the issue?
Yeah.
If you can't, okay, we got a problem here, right? I'm not interested in all that other stuff. What do we need to do? How do we get A to B? Because I am always saying that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not interested in the zigzag. My brain, I just can't do it.
We have too much on our minds already.
And I do that to myself, but when I listen to him, I see the straight line. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, okay, because we get caught up in the minutia of funnels and pages and websites and analytics, and, you know, I have a notebook at work that I use, and I affectionately call it my anti-rabbit hole notebook, because I can very easily fall down a rabbit hole and just keep going, because it affords me the ability to solve problems. But I don't need to be there. I need to be here.
That's right.
So what is your problem? What would you like to do about it? Make a decision. And when he says that, I'm like, oh, that was so good.
But people don't think often it's that easy. They want more explanation. They want, you know, draw me some squiggly lines on a dry erase board. It's like, okay.
But sometimes we're afraid to make a decision, and that is certainly another conversation, you know, because we're afraid to make a decision that we've already made. You know,
and
so maybe the decision,
that paralysis of analysis
in our heart. We know what makes our heart sing. We know what we love to do. We know the 2 or 3 things that we could do almost effortlessly every single day.
And, you know.
Yet we then tell ourselves, oh, it's not rational, it's not practical, it's not a money maker, it would offend people. bothersome, it would make them uncomfortable. So we often know what it is that what the solution is.
Mhm.
We just need to make a decision to execute.
That's right. We get out of our own heads. Get out of our own heads.
Being there sometimes, I'm just saying.
Yeah, we could be in there all day, every day, but we still gotta put our feet to the floor and just get out there and go.
Yeah.
Like he made a joke one time. If he ever got robbed, he would rather you steal his wallet than take his phone. Because
Yeah.
he was like, take my wallet. Don't take my effing phone.
And that's just it. I mean, for phones now,
Mhm.
they're supercomputers.
Yes, they are.
You create and edit just about everything on your phone.
Mhm.
Sure, you may have to purchase some third-party apps, and sure, you may have to spend some time learning how to do things, and it might be done a little differently. But if you had to choose between a smartphone and a desktop, I would take the smartphone hands down. So there's so much available to us. The question is, do we use it? Do we know to ask? Do we want to ask? Sometimes asking for help is the tough part. It's the tough part. But before we end, in the book, there's a chapter called Spin Your Story. And I love what he talks about in there, because, your story is yours, but you're going to maybe tell just a little differently based on your platform. And I know we asked the question earlier on tonight, does your story change? I don't think your story changes, but I think the way in which you deliver that story might be a little bit different. So you might have a seemingly cryptic tweet like, dinner at my favorite place isn't love. And you might use a geotag, and you might have a picture of your dinner plate. And that's really all you have to share, because people know, one, this is what you love to eat and you're at your favorite place. And so it has the same effect as writing out, I'm at dinner with at this restaurant, and I love this restaurant because. So how we tell that story can certainly change based on the platform we're using. And that's okay, because it's still very much our story. You're not talking about someone else's dinner, you're talking about your own dinner. And that, I thought that was just a good reminder that your story is yours, but it's okay to tell it a little differently. And I liken that to, maybe I'm going to translate an audiobook into a different language. It's still my story, it's just in a different language. And that language is dictated by the platform that you're using. It's a good reminder. Good reminder. All right, so final thoughts. Was it worth the read? What do you think? Final thoughts on the book?
Anybody want to state their final thoughts before Shoshana and I state ours? Shoshana, you know what the book is for June?
So I have some ideas. I might throw them out there now and see what people think before I pick a book. There is a book, and it was the title of our last Pass the Cast, Magic of Thinking Big, by, what's his name? Joseph Andrew, I don't know. It's an old book, but it's really good. So there is that.
What book was that? I'm sorry. Which book?
Let's see if I can find a couple of there were a couple of other titles that I thought would be really, really amazing to read for June. Anybody have any specific suggestions that they might like to read or throw out? let's see here. Where's my list? Here we go. Here we go. Okay, so one of the books that I really thought would be good to read is, where is it? There's Extreme Ownership, How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win. And it's a little different than maybe what we've read so far. It really sort of gets in your mind, really developing that we're just going to make a decision and win mindset. It's a really, really short book, but there's a book titled The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. And he's written some other, they're short reads, they're fairly easy to read, but they're really packed with a lot of great information. And then this one is tougher to find, so I'm not sure that I want to have it as a book club selection, but it's The Startup of You by Reid Hoffman. You can still find it, it's just tougher to find. Yeah, and then, I don't know, what do you think? I think some of them, they're not terribly academic reads, but they're certainly not short reads either.
Yeah, whatever.
Those are some of the things I'm thinking about. But if you have suggestions or would like to read a particular book, feel free to drop it in the comments, or you can message me. I'll post that final selection by the end of the month.
Awesome. And someone asked
when's the next, to get the book for June and then to read it.
That's right. Someone asked in the comments, when's the next book of the month discussion?
So our next one will be, one moment please, third Thursday in June, which, oops, almost made an emergency call. Whoops. Where are we? Come on.
Oh, that sounds good, Trees. Big Things Have Small Beginnings by Wes Berry.
Where are we? So, June. So that would be June 18th. Would be our next book of the month. So the other two books that I'm really leaning more towards, one is called The 5 Levels of Leadership by John Maxwell. It's kind of a classic, but it's great. And the book I am very curious about, I watched an interview with the author last week. The book is titled QBQ, which is Question Before the Question, and it's written by John Miller. I think that's actually a really good read for us as we end the second quarter and then really focus on really banging out the last 2 quarters of 2020. So how we think, the questions that we ask, the accountability that we're willing to take on, and what we need to know, because sometimes we don't know what we don't know.
Amen to that. So yeah, whatever you choose, Shoshana, we are absolutely 100% fine with. You always pick out some good selections.
Like Christmas, like picking out.
I know, it's amazing. And I appreciate those of you who are in the chat right now, and y'all are really, really putting in your input. I love that. So we're going to close on that note. This was a good discussion, guys. Thank y'all for hopping on. Thank you, Trees, Karen, Alita.
I thank everyone for coming, for tuning in. I know it's late on the East Coast. It's 7:22 here in LA, 10:22 in New York. But thank you so much in New York. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sometimes I'll speak and my son is like, I gotta here. I'm like, really? You think? Whatever. Old habits die hard. Old habits die hard. But yeah, thank you, because you always have choices, and you chose to spend a little bit of time with us here, so I'm very appreciative. So have a great night. Thank you so much. I will post a final book selection in the group by the end of the month. If you haven't read the book, and want some suggestions, grab a drink and read a few pages. Gary Vee is pretty amazing.
Yes.
We just have to figure out how to not throw an F-bomb every now and then. But he's okay. He's okay. So thank you so much. It was a pleasure. And I will see you all next time. Okay?
Bye, guys.